This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
And welcome to the latest, the freshest edition of Tiger Talk with Chirco and Company. I'm your host, Vito Jerome Chirco, alongside the Doc from Doc and Jock, John Macaroon. John, what's going on today?
Vito, what's happening? We got a special guest.
We do today in studio right now. Sitting across from me is Mr. Jason Jarvie of the Motor City Sports Rant and Fantasy Nerds podcast on the DSP network. Jason, how's it going?
It's going good. That was a really nice intro song. I wonder who made that. Whoever made that must be extremely talented.
Is that you, Jason? Are you trying to? Made it?
Yes,
Yeah, I was about to say. I could tell from that. I thought John might have told me that before too. So beautiful ability
Thank
there.
You.
You showed off, and to everybody looking for somebody to put together a nice mix or theme song.
Yeah, contact
right.
me.
You can do that,
on
Jason
Twitter,
Jarvie. How do we?
Jarvie the King.
There we go. So Jason Jarvie is alongside us, and as a disclaimer really quick, I'm a guy that has some sniffles as well at times, and I wanted to proclaim to everybody listening to this podcast that I do not do coke. Okay, just wanted to make that clear because I know Donald Trump has come under some major fire for that. And maybe he has some allergies.
We both got the sniffles right now.
Right? So. And we have, what do you have, Jason? Do you have allergies or something?
Mine might be a sinus something, but hopefully it's on the way out.
Why? Very good.
Yes, Vinny. Why? Indeed.
There you go.
But Vito, before we get started, I'm very curious because now it might be an office mystery. Did you take the lady's $20 that the lady had missing from the office? Because I don't know. This is the second time she's inquired. Did you pick up her $20 from the office here? Anything at all? Did you take it and buy something with it?
She's very suspicious. I don't know why. Is it because of my stature? Because if it is, she better watch out. Never mind that. I don't know. Why does she keep coming back? Is this a lady that just frequents the fitness room there and works out a lot? I don't know, because she asked it. How long ago was that the last time? She asked you and me.
It was a month ago.
Yeah.
So I've never seen her other than the fact that, you came into the office to record the podcast and you said, hey, no, I don't know nothing about it.
And that's true. I really don't know anything about it. I'm not lying like, maybe one of our presidential candidates. Anyways, to get away from that really quick into the Tigers, so the focus of this podcast. And actually, first, before all of that, you made some interesting comments on a podcast of yours recently on the Motor City Sports Rant saying, suck it, Chirco and Company at one point. Now, John had me listen to that, and I was just in total dismay over it, disgraced by it.
I remember saying that.
Why did it come to be?
What was it in reference to? I don't remember.
Actually, I remember, and Doc, you can explain too.
Oh, wasn't it? Were we talking about our podcast getting the most listens?
Yes.
It was just the first podcast. I said suck it to Doc and Jock as well. So it was just to everybody in the podcast network.
Good.
So I'll say it to your face.
Good.
Suck it.
I like
We're
that.
at like 2,800
I appreciate that.
now.
Yeah.
So suck it.
Episode 78 of the Motor City Sports Rant has just been downloaded a numerous number of times. We're all shocked by it, but it was great. And I shared it with Jason, and that's his reaction. He's mild-mannered, but when you give him a little bit of credit, that's what comes out.
He says suck it to whoever you may be. Doesn't matter.
Whoever. It doesn't matter. I think it was my rant on the Detroit Lions kicker that got everybody going.
Okay.
But that's just my speculation.
Well, very good. I'll let that go here. And now moving on to, I think, somebody else that we could yell suck it to, Brett Ausmus. And were you dismayed by the fact that he was brought back, is going to be brought back for a fourth year now officially, Jason?
Part of me is dismayed because I've been saying pretty much since midway through the season that Brett Ausmus isn't the coach that's going to get this Detroit Tigers team to the playoffs. And just to start with the playoffs, I'm not even saying a championship. So that he's brought back means that it's another lackluster year that we're looking forward. But on the other hand, I'm not sure what manager was going to be out there that you could bring in and just automatically change the direction of the team.
It's about the alternative solutions, too. You're right.
Right. There's no Joe Madden, there's no Terry Francona out there that the Tigers were going to bring in and be able to guide them to the World Series.
Yeah. Doc, what do you think?
I'm utterly shocked because why announce it so soon? I mean, there could be, the name that a lot of people are talking about is Dave Martinez, the bench coach for the Cubs. A lot of people are saying, well, okay, if you just had waited before you picked up the option, maybe a candidate gets let go. Maybe the egregious error that Buck Showalter, made in not bringing in his best reliever cost him his job. Maybe a manager that goes in for a negotiation or an end-of-the-year chat all of a sudden has a bad conversation with the GM and he gets let go. But now you tie yourself to Brad Ausmus, and then did you hear what Alavila said? That was probably the most shocking comment, that he was willing to come out publicly and say, well, 3 years ago probably was a mistake to have a rookie manager hired. Yeah, no shit, it's a mistake.
Yeah, we all knew that.
We all said it on the podcast.
Yeah.
It's a huge mistake. But now, 3 years into it, based on the results, it's still not a mistake? It makes no sense, and it's infuriating.
Well, think about it. In any other job that you have, if your boss came out and said that to you, how would you feel, Jason? Have you heard that?
I'd be like, I'm probably going to be fired soon.
Yeah, and you want me even here? I mean, wouldn't you want to move on yourself almost? Like Brad Ausmus has to be thinking, I'm not even wanted here.
I don't know. If I'm getting paid what Brad Ausmus is getting paid, I don't really care.
Uh-huh. But wasn't it just a matter of fact? I mean, he's given him this contract option, extending it to him because of the fact that there's no options out there that are better, like you said, Jason and Doc. So, I mean, it's not a huge vote of confidence, to say the least.
And that's what I wanted to ask you, is Brad Ausmus a lame duck manager? Is
Absolutely.
he somebody that can have success because of what they've done, only extending his contract, not giving him 2 or 3 more years?
Well, yeah, no contract extension. He said he didn't even think it was necessary to give him a contract extension. Didn't think it was worth it in so many words. I mean, isn't that a horrible vote of confidence in itself as well, Jason?
But pretty much, I feel like this, giving him the option, is essentially just saying, do whatever you can next season. If we're gonna have the same output, just narrowly miss the playoffs, whatever, we'll move on, and we'll see you at that point. But I think the possibility is there. You saw in the second half that if everything does work out, then we do have talent on this team. You saw Justin Upton turn around. Justin Verlander came into form. We have a lot of young pitchers, so the talent is there. And I'm not saying that if we do good next year that it's all because of Brad Ausmus, but the possibility is there.
What grade now would you give Ausmus for his 2016 campaign?
I'd probably give him a solid C.
And I said that on last week's podcast.
Because I don't think he obviously had his mistakes, but you got to give him a little bit of credit for bringing this team back from the brink. I mean, they were essentially a bottom feeder team, and they were right in it right up until the last day of the season. So I think a C I'm not going to go much higher.
No, I don't think you can go higher, Doc.
No, absolutely not. That's the ceiling. I mean, he didn't do enough in key situations, and he was too inconsistent. That's the thing I think most people are upset with Brad Ausmus, is that he'll say one thing about his philosophy, and then the next day he'll go and do the exact opposite. And it just didn't seem like, for some reason, I don't know if the baseball gods are against him, it just seemed like he was snake-bitten in a lot of the key decisions he would make. If he would pull a Victor Martinez in the game to pinch hit, it just always seemed like his turn would come up again where you'd have to go and throw in like a guy like a Romine or a nobody, and it just didn't seem like a lot of his decisions just didn't come through. And I would say that, Alavila is really tying his career and future to Brad Ausmus, and that's a mistake, clearly.
So that's a mistake, but Avila as a whole for 2016, his first full season as GM of the Tigers, what grade should he receive?
I'd probably give him a D, just because he didn't do enough to bolster this team. Because you saw it, it's there, and I don't think you can put a lot of the blame on Ausmus, because a lot of it is the offense just didn't produce. I brought up the stat in one of the rants that in the last month of games, pretty much every win, you're scoring over 6 runs. And in all of your losses, you're only losing by a small amount, and you're probably scoring 2 to 3 runs. So that's your offense just isn't producing. So something isn't working. The pitching isn't able to if the pitching isn't working, then it's the hitting. If the hitting isn't working, it's the pitching. So Alavila, he just did not do enough. He didn't go out and get the bullpen arms that we needed, and he didn't get the depth that we needed.
So Anthony Fennick gave Ausmus, by the way. Anthony Fennick, my colleague from the Detroit Free Press, no hating on him too much at least here, gave Brad Ausmus a B, gave Al Avila a C. Now, you gave a lesser grade to Avila as well. Now, what was your official grade once again for Avila?
For Avila, it's a D.
A D. See, I think that's really low, but I think a B from Fennick is way too high at the same time. I think you're right that it should be a C at the very highest. I even said, you know what, if you don't want to be as nice, I would say a C minus, which is almost a C anyways, Doc. But what would you give to Al Avila, by the way?
Yeah, I would say C minus. The biggest thing that we're all clamoring for is a consistent bullpen. You've seen now this team also is predominantly right-handed, and in the final series, you had a pitcher that was able to dominate them. There's just a lot of pieces that this team still needs. There's still a lot of pluses, obviously. You have a lot of positive storylines as well with the young pitchers, with the emergence of Upton in the second half, what Zimmerman could do in the beginning half of next year. But there are way too many holes with this team right now, and I'm just fascinated to see what is the area they're going to target, because we were looking over some of the free agents. There's nothing really big out there that's going to make you go, yes, this is the guy that's going to put you over the hump. There's nothing out there. You're going to have to fine-tune some things and maybe just have to really start to say it that the window is really closed and it's a rebuild or a retool. But
retooling. Remember that debate last week on our podcast? Retooling or rebuilding. It's
not
retooling.
Good. It's just not good enough to keep me interested that much more in the hope that this team is going to be a championship-level team.
But we know one thing, guys, that they have to do is rectify the bullpen. Big time. I think revamp it totally, almost, Jason.
I just don't see what you're gonna do, because right now, looking at the bullpen, pretty much our team outside of the bullpen really is pretty well set. The lineup is pretty, unless you're gonna go out and get a different shortstop outside of that, or maybe another outfielder. That's pretty much set. And I think the rotation is pretty well set too. You have all those young arms, Justin Verlander, and then they'll probably some combination of Jordan Zimmerman or Anibal Sanchez. So then you go to the bullpen. So you have Francisco Rodriguez and Alex Wilson. I think those are the only two guys that are pretty well set. Bruce Rondon, maybe. I think he's proven that he's untrustworthy, but I think you can pretty much, you have to go out and at least get two bullpen arms who can either give you probably one long reliever and one guy who's a setup man.
So you can get that done on the cheap for a bullpen, but you can also go out and spend big by getting Aroldis Chapman, who, remember, blew that game last night for the Cubs, and now the Cubs and Giants have to play a game 4, excuse me, and it looked like the Cubs were going to sweep that series against the Giants.
When I was looking at the big free agent names out there, the top one was Yoenis Cespedes, who at first I'm like, I would love to have him back, but then right after them you have Aroldis Chapman, and if you're asking me who would fit better on this team right now, I think if you put Cespedes in the outfield, you'd have a monster outfield for one. You'd have Upton, JD, and Cespedes, but I don't think you need that. Maben and having somebody to back him up whenever he's hurt is probably going to be good enough for you, because Maben really gave a spark to this team. And if you bring in Aroldis Chapman, it's crazy. You have a guy that can hit 100 consistently in the ninth inning. You would finally have a closer on this team that can shut out teams.
But did you have confidence that if he came to Detroit, he would be the Aroldis Chapman of 2015, 2016? Or would he come here and start blowing saves, not able to hit the strike zone, or be the guy that who we saw, blow the save versus
Monday
the Giants?
Night. Yeah, I mean, he blew that game Monday night against the Giants there, and blew an opportunity. He came in the 8th for Joe Madden. I thought he used him wisely. And then we talked about Buck Showalter, who's getting shellacked for not using Zach Britton, his ace closer. Joe Madden brings him in for the Cubbies in the 8th inning, and he doesn't work out. So, I mean, you can slam a guy, and then, the guy actually used him. Joe Madden did in Chicago against the Giants on Monday night, and it didn't work out in his favor. So you got both ends, right? Really right there. But you were asking me, will he work out with the Tigers now, specifically if he joins the Tigers? He's not past his prime. These guys have been over the hill that they've really acquired in recent memory. Getting Valverde, even, not Benoit, but having Joe Nathan there, who flamed out big time, as well as having K-Rod, who's a little bit at least past his prime. Can't throw as hard. He's no longer really K-Rod when he was with the Angels back in the early 2000s. So you got to realize that Chapman just to sum it all up, is not past his prime. So I think he would be extremely effective as the closer of the Tigers in 2017 and beyond, Jason.
I mean, if you want to go by Detroit logic, he'd probably come in and then it would be the curse of Todd Jones that he'd be a roller coaster. But if you look at it just on what he's doing right now, then you'd have to expect that he comes in and is an effective closer. But you're also probably going to have to give him a ton of money, which I just don't see the Tigers organization doing that. They've already have a blown out budget right now. And more than likely, the free agents that they're going to get this year, it's going to be small guys. It's going to be, like you said, fixing the bullpen on the cheap, because I don't think they want to give another big contract to somebody who might flame out.
And then you've got the contract option with K-Rod to consider picking up. Do you guys think it's wise to do so? Because really, remember this too, if you do that, go in that direction, it's much, much, much cheaper than going out and signing Aroldis Chapman, who's going to get a multi-million-dollar deal in the amount of $10 million plus annually. Because K-Rod is under that margin, remember, salary-wise, if you pick up his contract option for 2017. Chapman will get $10 million plus per season. So do you have to count that or take that into account as well when you consider whether or not you pick up the contract option of K-Rod or go out and get an Aroldis Chapman, Jason?
Yeah, I think probably the wiser option right now would be just re-signing K-Rod. You know, his zombie arm was good enough for us this year. I don't think you necessarily need Aroldis Chapman. I think you need to get better bullpen arms for the 6th, 7th, 8th inning, for when our young guys can't go 6 or 7 innings.
Yep, you got to stack up the middle innings, Doc. I think that's the wise decision to make right now. And you can get those guys on the cheap, as we already made clear here.
Now, I've heard some arguments that maybe the bullpen talent isn't something where you say they're not talented enough. It's a situation where they're not used in the proper roles. Whereas if you have a solid number one closer like an Aroldis Chapman, now you can slot guys in different positions, and maybe the same guys could have some more success. Maybe you have K-Rod be used primarily in the 8th. Now you have Rondon pretty much slotted in the 6th, 7th inning if there's any trouble. And then the other guys like Wilson's and other bullpen relief can come in different situations that maybe are more advantageous. Do you agree with that maybe argument that if you just add one more talented arm, you just reshift some people's roles, and it might, maybe make it more of a patchwork type thing instead of how bad it was this year? They took a step back.
Well, also, don't limit a guy to one inning. A one-inning rule in the same inning every single game he comes out and pitches out of the pen, like K-Rod in the 9th, or Alex Wilson or Bruce Rondon in the 8th, going forward into 2017 and beyond. You got to extend it beyond the one inning that they're always used in specifically, as Francona has done with the Indians using Andrew Miller in any kind of role out of the bullpen in the 5th, 6th, any inning that's a high-leverage situation for the Indians where there's guys on in scoring position. You put in Andrew Miller to put out the fire. Tigers need to implement that kind of strategy for the bullpen going forward. Thing is, you got the wrong manager for it once again.
Exactly.
Right? Brad Ausmus is not the guy that's going to do that with the bullpen arms going forward.
Yeah,
Jason?
You shouldn't be limited to you're pitching 7th, you're pitching 8th. The way that they should look at it is that just be ready for an inning. And that's all that I want from you is one inning, whether it's the entire 7th inning or whether it's between the 5th and the 6th inning. That's all that I want. I want you to be ready for that. And if we can somehow get that, I think you take a little bit of pressure off guys, because I think they have it in their mind that I'm a 7th inning guy, I'm an 8th inning guy, and that's what I'm doing. And if they just go down to, I just need to get 3 outs, I think they'd be fine.
Any role. Look at the Indians. Not only Andrew Miller, who can go more than one inning, which is nice to have. Tigers could use that with Shane Green, but the Indians have a guy like Brian Cho threw a ton of pitches in this past series against the Red Sox. Dan Otero is another guy in the late innings that can be used really in any spot out of the Tri bullpen. So Francona's used those guys wisely. The problem is it comes down to Brad Ausmus. But the Tigers have guys where they could do that with, such as Shane Green. You could use him in the 6th inning or the 7th and even pitch him an inning and 2/3 or pitch him a full 2 innings as the Tribe do with Andrew Miller, who is a step above, remember, than Shane Green at the same time. So I don't want to make it sound like Green is the same kind of caliber of a relief arm as Andrew Miller is.
But now, based upon what we saw with Alavila last offseason, bringing in Pelfrey, Mark Lowe, Wilson, do you believe that you have confidence that he's going to go out there and target the right reliever and bring him here? I'm a little bit. I understand that he brought in Zimmerman and Upton, and Zimmerman had an okay first half, and Upton really took off. But overall, in terms of what he brought in 2015, 2016, I'm not exactly sure I'm confident that he's going to go out there, find the right guys to help improve this team.
I'll give Al Avila this much. Mike Pelfrey was a bad signing from the start. That's not what I'm giving him credit for here. It's the fact that Mark Lowe looked really solid for a lot of 2015, especially in the first half of 2015. And then also, Justin Wilson was a solid relief arm for the Yankees in a lot of ways there before the Tigers acquired him. So I liked what they got in Justin Wilson. And even at times this year, he didn't look miserable, Justin Wilson. Now, Mark Lowe did. I think he's past his prime. Jay Wilson is not. The Wilsons look like a bona fide duo for the late innings and even middle innings to be used in any kind of role really going forward out of the Tigers' pen. So I like what he did in getting Justin Wilson. I'll give him that much in his defense. But, yeah, the Mike Pelfrey signing was bad from the start. And remember, he's a starting pitcher that might have to be used out of the bullpen now. But looking into what he can do in terms of getting bullpen arms now on the cheap going forward in this offseason coming up, I think he can do it wisely because I think he might have learned from a guy like Mark Lowe and how that went the wrong way.
Now, do you think this is getting a little crazy? What if we already have the bullpen arms on our roster? And I'm talking about guys who are starters. Put Anibal Sanchez, Jordan Zimmerman. It's already worked with Shane Green for a little bit. Put those guys in the bullpen because you have young arms. JV's your stud. You got Fulmer, Boyd, and Norris. And
maybe go out and get an addition.
Get one more starter who's better than those guys right now. Get them on the cheap. And now you have elite arms in the bullpen. Is that out of the realm of possibility?
Well, I think Anibal is a guy that you can use in the pen in 2017. I wouldn't mind doing that. And Buck Farmer as well for an inning or two out of the pen here and there. I think they're all right with doing that with those two guys. I think they should do that. But the thing is, Sanchez is making a lot of money as well. And then you got Pelfrey on the payroll as well. Now, I think they should move on completely from Mike Pelfrey. Pelf, they should get a bus and just tell the bus driver to go one way and never to come back with Mike Pelfrey on the bus. That's what I think about him.
Yeah, and even though Sanchez is getting the money, though, if you have to play him anyways, put him in the bullpen. I don't want him to come out and pitch for 4 or 5 innings and give up 6 runs because now you're already behind the 8 ball.
Yeah, he shouldn't be used as a starter every 5th day. I mean, they tried not to do that. They had to because of injuries at times as well. Doc?
Now, Jason's being coy over here in that he didn't mention that the Indians, who a certain podcast host said would get to the World Series, they went to Boston and ended the series rather quickly, ending the career of David Ortiz. I was happy to see him lose. And Dave Dombrowski, wow, man, a payroll like that can't get out of the first round. It was interesting to see that Scherzer, Porcello, David Price all struggled in the postseason. But I think it's looking more and more like Jason's going to be paying me because I'm here to say I think the odds-on favorite to win the entire Major League Baseball postseason is the Cleveland Indians. They're playing, but the Indians are going to win it all.
Cut down the hopes a little bit. They have a guy like Josh Tomlin in the rotation right now, who's not a guy you want to trust upon in a postseason series too much.
I want my free lunch. I'm getting my free lunch. You want to come?
I will. If you win it, I'm with you.
Now, is the bet still? Is it just get to the World Series or does it win it this time?
I checked. I said that they would. I prefaced it and said that they would get to the World Series.
Okay. Well, I still think the Blue Jays are going to give them a hell of a series.
Blue Jays are better. In your defense, Jason, I don't think Doc wins that bet because the Blue Jays are better. The rotation might even be better at this point because the Tribe have been so injury-plagued and everything this season going into the postseason as well, especially where you have Kluber and Bauer and Josh Tomlin as your big 3, really, in your rotation. And you can trust Kluber. He's a bona fide ace. But after that, are you going to trust Trevor Bauer or Josh Tomlin beating the Jays? All those guys that are mashers in the middle of their order, really 1 through 9 in their lineup, that can hit for power and extreme power. The Jays have the upper hand. And the rotation, like I said, isn't horrible. You've got Aaron Sanchez, who kind of looked fearful of the moment now pitching. He kind of did against the Rangers. Didn't look great or have his best stuff. But he's so young. And with that being said, can still show it off. Even though maybe the pressure did get to him, maybe the nerves will continue to, halt maybe a little bit of what he has, what he can produce. But I still think he'll be more solid than not solid going forward.
Speaking of the Indians, a lot of people have discussed maybe retooling the team, the Tigers team, in a way to kind of target the Indians. I think they're the class of the division, and in order to get to the postseason and win the AL Central, you probably got to get by the Indians. And what you see with the Tigers is they're a home run team, boom or bust, like Jason said. But do you think there's enough free agents out there to get more contact hitters, more role players that are solid offensively and defensively? It looks like Cleveland has the upper hand in a lot of areas: pitching, offense, managerial status. There's a lot of things good over there in Cleveland right now, and those guys will come back next season. So it looks like the Tigers kind of should they look to kind of add players that will help them get through the Cleveland Indians?
See, I'm not too worried about the Tribe, even though you got to point out that Michael Brantley, their best hitter coming into this year, only played 11 games and is coming back in 2017, should be fully healthy, you would imagine.
And weren't we just saying last year that the Royals were the
class, the team to mold and to replicate, right? And now the Indians are the team you want to replicate, perhaps. I think more with the bullpen and the usage of the pen, but it comes down to the manager a little bit. And being equipped also with better pen arms. So it's Al Avila's job. I know one of you guys, I think it was Doc, asked me about whether or not they can get those guys. And we brought up whether or not they could, on the cheap. And I was saying, I think they could. So you got to get 2 or 3 guys that can pitch in any kind of inning, in any kind of role. If you do that, you can kind of replicate what the Indians have done. And the rotation arms, the Indians' rotation is just better, though, 1 through 5, really, as well, when you have everybody healthy: Carlos Carrasco, Danny Salazar. And the Tigers might not be able to replicate that. Even though you got to believe that Matt Boyd maybe will take a step forward. Michael Fulmer will be as good. Daniel Norris, fully healthy, maybe. Can we keep him healthy? If so, he could take another step forward. And Zimmerman being healthy, that's a big-time factor as well to take into account. So the Tigers' rotation might stack up very nicely, more than you think with the Tribe going into 2017. And the Indians might not be as big of a factor because of the fact that seasons they got out of Mike Napoli and Rajai Davis aren't really repeatable at the stages in their respective careers. So remember that as well. And a guy like Tyler Naquin, center fielder for the Tribe, what are you going to get out of him next year? Guys have sophomore slumps, they do. I mean, Michael Fulmer, with that being said, might as well. And then Jose Ramirez, what he did.
He already had his sophomore slump in the
he might have
part
did
of the season.
with what he showed in the second half. You're right as well. So, Doc, I don't think you have to entirely replicate or mold yourself after the Indians in the offseason with what the Tigers do and making moves. I think it comes down to more what we've already talked about ad nauseum, which is the bullpen, adding pieces to upgrade the pen. So I wanted to kind of move on to something that Jason Jarvie specializes in, which is fantasy football, really quick here on the Fantasy Nerds podcast. And Jason, my team is 0-5.
Oh,
so it's not looking good, right? So I'm thinking I have to boot. It's time to move on from this season. At 0-5, it's a 10-team league, by the way, just so you know. And, yeah, you can boo me all day long because I suck. I really do suck this year.
So is there a reason? Is there some injury that just devastated your team?
See, I got the verdict from a lot of people in my league that I didn't draft well enough. They let me hear it from day one when I drafted my team. And I'll tell you who I have a little bit. My team was bad from the start.
I want to hear this lineup.
Okay, Russell Wilson's my quarterback, who's now been injury-prone this year, and I don't know what to expect from him going forward.
I'm dealing with Russell Wilson as well.
Yeah, he had one big week. He did, though. Jameis Winston is my backup, who's been inconsistent. We know that much. Has a big arm, can maybe get it done, but is he consistent? No.
Right.
Running back, Jonathan Stewart of the Panthers, who's been out now. So a little bit of the injury bug has bit to me. But I have Allen Robinson of the Jags. Julio Jones, who had that monster week, really has had a monster campaign thus far. So I like those guys, but the rest of my team, I have like Travis Kelce at tight end. My defense, I had to pick up the Eagles D, who's done well because I had the Bengals defense. Really hasn't performed. We saw what they did against the Cowboys, against Dak, the Dak attack, and the Cowboys. So, I mean, my team, I guess overall-wise, it isn't deep enough as well.
Who's your other running backs?
And that's the thing. I was going to bring it up. I'm not deep enough at running back. I had Justin Forsett.
Okay.
That didn't work out, huh?
So is it the way that you set your lineup? Is it quarterback? Is it one or two?
One quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 wideouts, 1 tight end, 1 flex, 1 D.
Okay, so yeah.
Well, before Jason, you get into it, Vito, just delete your team. Just delete your team.
I mean, it's almost time to just scrap it.
Just delete your team and walk away from that league and just be like, whatever. Just leave it as is. Whatever the lineup is currently, leave it and walk away because you're going over. That team is horrid, man. Oh my God, that team's terrible.
There's potential there.
Thank you, Doc. Thank you very much.
Your wide receivers were Allen Robinson and
Julio Jones, Larry Fitz, who's had not a monster year, but a big year. He's still the number 1 target, I think, in that Cardinals passing attack.
Definitely.
Now, Palmer, though, isn't great.
So who are your other running backs?
See, I mean, I'm having a hard time. Well, Tevin Coleman of the Falcons, who's had a all right year, pretty quality year.
Is it a PPR league?
It's not. Standard league, standard scoring, which hurts me a little bit. So, yeah, I'm weak at a lot of positions. I mean, that's the truth. But, like, quarterback, I should be better. Wilson plays better like he has in the past.
Position, what I would try to do is trade one of those wide receivers for a better running back. I'd try and trade either Robinson or Jones, and then maybe even package Jonathan Stewart for one of those power running backs out there. And I would get one of the good ones. Maybe try to go get Ezekiel Elliott. They escape me. I mean, the ones who are doing good. I mean, Isaiah Crowell is doing good, but I would not trade one of those top guys for that. Maybe you might be able to trade Larry Fitzgerald and somebody else to try and get Isaiah Crowell and try to get him at a cheaper deal.
How about the guys that are doing poorly right now, such as a Todd Gurley, who's done poor for a lot of this year, but has a lot of potential, had a great year last year. By the way, I just got to credit my brother here. Can I use the term trade rape?
You can.
Yeah, okay.
What was it?
It was trading Todd Gurley to my brother, who just went over the top of my head with what he was telling me, trying to get me to make the deal. I think I got Martavis Bryant. He got Todd Gurley.
Was this year or last year?
Last year when Gurley just went off.
Yeah,
remember he had the injury proneness. People feared his injury proneness, and then he went off.
Early in the season before he went off?
Before he went off.
Yes,
I should have known. Like, if I would have kept him, I made the playoffs last year, too. I could have made a run, if I had him, obviously. Doc?
Vito, we need a new phrase for that because that's kind of funny. I know.
I'm trying to think trade. I mean, that's the...
You got bent over. You got bent over, basically.
There we go. That's the phrase that everybody uses nowadays. But anyways, that trade was bad from the start.
Yes.
It really was.
You're for this season, you really are. You're in a situation where you have to either retool with free agents, or you're gonna. I would trade one of those wide receivers. Try to get another running back because it sounds like the running backs you do have just aren't producing. Russell Wilson really could turn it around. He just coming off the bye week, and he's coming off of a really good game. He could easily turn it around, and that whole Seahawks team could turn it around.
Now, you guys remember when Morningweg came to town and was hired as the Lions football head coach? And I think they went to, he started his career like 0-14, and he got his first win like that. When you get your first fantasy win, the moment the last game ends, take a video because I think you're going to win one game max this year, bro.
Thank you, Doc.
No problem.
What a compliment.
Just celebrate your one victory, Morningweg Lion style, and tape it so that we know. Because, I'm seeing Ofer.
And the sad thing is, I've made the finals in this league. I've won before. I made the finals, not last year, but the year before, I think, now. So, I've made the finals. I've looked good on paper.
Not this year.
But my drafting has kind of bit me in the behind. Last year and this year, I think.
It's not the drafting. You drafted your team.
It's not bad, right?
No,
not horrible.
You didn't draft wrong. When you went into that draft, if all those players played up to their potential, you would have had a good team. And I think when you talk about Russell Wilson, Allen Robinson, Julio Jones, Larry Fitzgerald and you're starting 3 wide receivers, and you're looking at a good team right there, but they're just not working out. So
a lot of things in my life haven't worked out, and this year that team, my fantasy football team,
that's all that fantasy football is. I've said it time and time again. Fantasy football, there's really no skill in.
Thank you. No, he's the expert. Give him the insight. I appreciate that, Jason.
Why did you cut me off?
I just wanted to, on behalf of the Chirco and Company podcast, because I'm on both, I cut your mic off just as retribution for you telling us to suck it.
Well, whatever.
That is retribution. I appreciate that.
I just want to do that once.
To finish my statement, there's no skill in fantasy football. It's all luck. And it's all gut choices.
It's like the NCAA tournament, right? March Madness, filling out a bracket. You can have anybody, right? Fill out a bracket and get it more right than somebody that knows what they're talking about, right? It's how it is in fantasy as well.
It's a form of gambling. And I'm not even if you don't even need money to change it. You're basically just putting all your money down on red and hoping that they pan out for the entire season.
Yeah, hoping that something hits, and nothing has really stuck for me this year because of injuries too. Like you said, maybe my team could be better right now.
Look at what Russell Wilson did at the end of last season. He had a ton of big games.
He did.
Doug Baldwin went off for like a massive amount of touchdowns. I think he ended up with like 14 or 15 touchdowns at the end of the season. So things could turn around.
Thank you. So I still got a chance in so many words, unlike what Doc is telling me right now, trying to get me to jump off the cliff.
There's still a little hope.
Okay.
But
how big of hope? You said little now. It's not that high, huh? The hope right now.
Julio Jones, Larry Fitzgerald, Russell Wilson. That's who you want to base your team on. Allen Robinson, I am a little worried about. He's probably going to get the bulk of the targets there in Jacksonville, but that Jacksonville team seems like they've taken a step back.
So, Jason, really quick, thank you for everything with that insight. It's more than I could have ever been able to really deliver myself
no problem.
about my
Thanks
team.
for
So I
having
appreciate
me
that.
on the show.
Now, how's everything going with you at 105.1 The Bounce? How is that all going, Jason?
It's going. You know, we're playing our old school hip hop and R&B, and the Piston season is starting up again. So we had our first preseason game the other day, and when I was working, it's just like, oh man, this just feels right doing a sports thing. So it's fun working with Jake, and hopefully the Pistons do good this year. I think right now they're slated as a top 4 team in the East.
So it gets you thinking about sports, back on the sports train. And
Yeah,
the Pistons are a team to be optimistic about, too.
Oh, totally. Yeah, when you're listening to Jay-Z and Mark Morrison, Return of the Mac, for 6 hours a day, and then you get to listen to some Pistons, it's a good day.
Do you miss the sports format?
I do. And, I mean, just to be honest, I'm glad that I still work there and that I have a job. I do miss Detroit Sports 105.1, and I miss having another option of a sports station, because now if you're not a fan of what's going on the other station, then you really don't have another option. So, and more than anything, I miss the guys, because that was probably the biggest thing, is that I had a relationship with all the shows. The morning show with Sean, Mark, and Maz, Ryan and Rico. I worked a lot with them. And then for the last month and a half, I was actually producing the Jake and Rob Pasco and Lindsey Hunter / Braylon Edwards show. So I really got to work with those guys, and that's what I miss the most. Is those guys were great, and I think we really were putting out a good product. Just nobody knew about us.
And you were saying now there's not the good competition.
No. There isn't much on 1130. It's not a Detroit-based show, so you have to listen to the ticket.
And you didn't. I was about to say you didn't name the station. You said the other station at one point. I wanted to.
I know.
Get you to say this.
It's the
you
ticket.
said the station's name, so you know that. Yeah,
I know who they are.
But yeah,
and
yeah.
I think they have some good programming. Some of it I could take it or leave it.
Well, very good. With that, Jason Jarvie of the Motor City Sports Rant and the Fantasy Nerds Podcast, thank you very much, and you have a great day, and we'll talk again soon.
Thank you, Vito. Suck it.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Love it. Doc?
You got a couple guests coming in?
We do.
Calling in on the Top Cat Sales phone line. Who we got upcoming after the break?
Absolutely. It is Adam Strozinski, your co-host of Doc and Jock. We'll talk about how he puts up with you, how he deals with you. And then also the Vinny Stubbs Show guy. That is Vinny Stubbs, the host of that podcast. Will it be returning anytime soon? We'll talk to Vinny about that as well coming up here on Tigers Talk with Chirco and Company. Hey guys, it's Vito Chirco here from Top Cat Sales in lovely downtown Royal Oak, Michigan. Are you looking for team apparel for your high school, your club sports team, or corporation? Well, if so, then look no further than Top Cat Sales, located on the east side of Main Street in downtown Royal Oak, between 11 and 12 Mile. Through founder and former University of Michigan quarterback John Wangler's leadership, Top Cat Sales has developed a tradition of selling and distributing custom Adidas team apparel with the very highest quality and the very best service. So get your organization, your school, or your club team all in with Adidas today by going online to TopCatTeamSales.com. And once again, Top Cat Sales' website is TopCatTeamSales.com. And remember to follow Top Cat Sales on Twitter as well at Team Top Cat. And now, joining me at episode number 61 of Tigers Talk with Chirco and Company is a longtime member of the DSP network, Vinny Stubbs. Vinny, how's it going today?
What's going on, guys? How you doing?
Hey, good to have you on here. And I want to talk about, first and foremost, the Tigers. And the Tigers' decision to retain Ausmus for a fourth year. Was it wise to do so, in your opinion?
I think I don't know if it's necessarily wise. If you look at all the candidates that are out there right now, I think that's like the only real direction you can go. I don't know. You just kind of got spoiled with Jim Leyland here, and I know people want a little bit more with the payrolls they got, but it is what it is, and Brad Ausmus is the guy.
It is what it is. You're not too complimentary, it seems like, of Brad Ausmus and his managerial ability or whatnot. So, I mean, Would you have liked to have seen him fired, though, even though there aren't the great options out there to replace him with?
Initially, I did, especially his first 2 seasons. It's really hard to say with this guy. I like him more than Jim Caldwell. It's so complicated with this guy. He does so many bonehead decisions, and he's got the staff. But you got to know, he's not necessarily the biggest problem either. The GM, Al Avila, hasn't been the best GM. I mean, you've had 10-plus years of study under one of the best GMs in baseball, and Dave Dombrowski. And you go out and you get guys like Mike Pelfrey and just the bullpen. It's just the starting pitching was decent, but you trot guys out there like Pelfrey and Zimmerman had a bad year. It's just not. It doesn't look good. 8 years, 2 years, $8 million, or was it $16 million for Pelfrey? So $8 million a season, and it's embarrassing. Like, you've seen the guy's numbers with Minnesota, so you pretty much already knew what you had. And Pelfrey, it's just the whole thing is a debacle. But it's really hard to say with Ausmus. So we'll give the guy another year. They picked up the option on him, and hopefully they can get in the playoffs next year.
Well, if you're a listener of the Detroit Sports Podcast Network, you are hearing a very familiar voice right now in Vinny Stubbs, courtesy of the Top Cat Sales phone line. And Vinny, as you were saying, or according to you, I should say, it's a cluster of reasons for why the Tigers failed to reach the postseason in 2016. Now, who do you place more of the blame upon? You brought up Al Avila and his poor decisions here and there going into this season. Now, do we place more of the blame on him for the Tigers' failure to get into the playoffs in 2016, or more of the blame upon the shoulders of Brad Ausmus?
It's really hard to say. I would have to go in the direction of Al Avila because, like I said, you had 10-plus years under one of the best GMs in baseball, and this is what we get. Brad Ausmus is really not to blame here because even though they have a huge payroll, it's just one thing after another. You had injuries and a lack of scoring. It was just a bad year altogether with the injuries and stuff. So I think they just picked up the option on Ausmus, saying they're going all out this year. Well, I should say next season, and they're just going to see what they have. So, to be honest with you, I put more of the blame on Al Avila for his bad decision making and bringing in free agents. So, I think Ausmus did actually a decent job in the second half of the season. Anyway, the guy's learning. He wasn't the best hire at the time, but if you look out there, there's not a lot of guys like the Angels haven't fired Scioscia, or you got a guy like Ron Gardenhire. Like it'd be nice to get those guys in here, but who knows? They could be washed up. Like I highly doubt a change of scenery for Scioscia is going to change.
Yeah, I don't think it would change enough, and I don't think Gardenhire right now, hiring him would change enough either because he's kind of an old-school manager. They're trying to go in the new analytical method or direction, and I don't think Scioscia or Gardenhire are the absolute right answers right now to fill the managerial position for the Tigers. So, anyways, I wanted to ask you, what do the Tigers have to do to rectify their issues, to become an improved ball club in 2017?
You know what? It's really hard to say. I think that they need to get a better outfield. I don't know what they're going to do with Maiden. I like J.D. Martinez. I heard rumors floating around that they might be looking to trade him because he's like the only guy that anybody would be looking to pick up on. So I like to see more speed in the outfield. And, they just had really bad luck with injuries this year. So hopefully next season there won't be as many injuries. You got to think like Victor Martinez is getting older. Miguel Cabrera, his average in home run, his power is up and his average is decent. But I was reading a stat on him when the count's like 1 and 2, he strikes out. Well, you just can't have stuff like that. You gotta score more runs, and you also gotta get lucky. Like, you just can't be getting hurt. Like Castellanos is hurt, J.D. Martinez is out. But those are that's a significant amount of power out of your lineup for the majority of the season. So they just gotta get lucky next year, and they gotta get younger in the outfield, and they gotta steal more bases.
Yeah, they're not very good.
That next season.
Yeah.
Yes.
They're not very good at base running, at playing defense, and you're full of stats. Vinny, I can tell you that much. Now, the Doc is on with me. He has something to say to you. Doc.
Vinny, what's happening, brother?
What's up? How you been, brother?
I've been great. Now, Adam is here in the studio. Vito's here. We posted a picture on Twitter, and we were just wondering, how come every single week, because I'm a big fan of the Vinny Stubbs Show, you have a lot of people that have missed the podcast that kind of has just went away. And every week you text me and I ask you, I'm like, hey, where the hell is the Vinny Stubbs Show? You're like, I'm going to do it. And then Sunday comes and there's no Vinny Stubbs podcast. What the hell, bro? I'm waiting for it. When's the next edition of the Vinny Stubbs Show? I don't want to cancel you, but I want to put you back up.
I'm coming out this week, man. I was supposed to do it last week, and some stuff happened. I'm going to start doing it every Sunday.
What's happened? What have you been doing? What have you been doing? Are you getting laid every week? What's going on? Are you busy?
No, of course I'm getting laid every week.
Hurricane Michael happened. That's what happened. So it messed him up.
He got busy. He got busy, all right.
He's always busy.
Yeah, right. He has some kind of reasoning. And you know what? I get it. People get busy, but you are willing to right now admit to us that you are going to do a weekly Vinny Stubbs show. Is that correct going forward?
Yes, of course I am. Of course.
Okay.
Just some things happened. John, you got to send me a kit, man. Come on.
I was
How am I supposed to do anything if you're not sending me a kit? I got this girl that's I'm actually talking to right now. She's really smart. She took my resume and made it look like I was a really sophisticated gentleman, and I'm not. And she could take the kits and make them look really nice. So, John, you got to send me a kit, man.
Okay, if you do a podcast, I'll send you something.
It's simple. Just send it to me, and I'll do a show. Come on.
Okay.
Just do the show. You'll get the kit.
Yeah,
It's
time
simple.
I'll do the
it's
show.
simple.
So everyone wants to know, how's the love life? Are you bringing any ladies back to the Vinny Stubbs studio?
Oh, of course. Just one, man. And she's a total maniac. I think this one's worse than the last one.
Worse than the last one. There's only one last one? I thought last one. Isn't there more than the last one, Vinny, at this point?
I thought you just said she was making you look sophisticated.
Yeah, I thought you liked her.
Oh, she's really smart and makes all my stuff look good. But, man, the stuff I got to deal with, I don't think I should share with the podcast. Maybe I'll tell you off the air. Maybe next week I'll come on and tell you all about it. You guys approve of it. It's really bad, guys.
So too much going on there. Now, you got to tell me this much. Is there too much going on with Donald Trump? You're a big-time supporter, I see, on Facebook, posting about him. You love him. I mean, what's the deal with that? Why do you love him? And does he still have a shot at this point?
Yeah, he has a shot. I think he's going to win. I think don't buy into the hype, man. The media is very biased, man. It's kind of sad. I was reading articles. I guess they used to do the same thing with Ronald Reagan. Donald Trump's very outspoken. He's kind of crazy at times. But, if you want to go in another direction, you got to get this guy in. If we lose with Donald Trump. I don't want another 4 years of what's going on in this country. It's really scary.
When you're on, weird stuff happens, okay? So I posted a picture on our Twitter page about Vito, talking to you on the phone. A dude named Kenneth just messaged us that Vito's hot. What should I make of that? So a gentleman just tweeted us.
Get some, Vito.
Oh, wow, yeah, baby. I'm all fired up now.
What about?
You're a studly guy, Vito.
I knew that.
About Vito being a stud.
I knew that, Vinny, already, but maybe not the right person to be awing over me.
He tweeted you, Vinny, so check it out, dude. He might be into you, too.
Kenneth guy was always on Twitter talking about Vito.
You know what's funny? I saw this tweet sent out by Steve Chimenti, a friend of the podcast. He included an image of Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito from that movie. What movie was that, guys? Were
Twins.
They twins? I thought of, and it was kind of fitting. Vinny and I thought of that. That would be really funny. You and I, Vinny, what do you say to that? Doing something like a replication or a parody of it or something of that sort.
It sounds like a good idea. I kind of do see the. What the hell am I trying to say here? I'm knocked out of my damn apartment, Adam.
the resemblance? Is that the word you're going
yeah,
for?
resemblance.
I'm frazzled right now. I'm trying to get in this damn apartment so I get to the damn studio.
He can't get into his
things
apartment.
like opening a door.
Yeah. But it's difficult at times. I can't ever get into the studio because Doc just locks me out. No, he doesn't do that. He's nicer than that. But we got to get you back on the DSP network full-time once a week with the Vinny Stubbs Show. And if so, what are you going to provide to us via that platform of the Vinny Stubbs Show?
What's that?
What's coming up next for the Vinny? What do you mean that was too complicated?
What's on your show?
I'm going to get on Jim Caldwell, man. I'm going to put a good piece together on this guy. It's getting a little out of control.
Just too out of control for Vinny Stubbs,
my whole family's from... What's that?
I said just too out of control for Vinny Stubbs. Jim Caldwell is just too out of control, huh?
Yeah, the guy's got to go. I mean, and then my family's from Philly, and I'm watching the game, and I almost started rooting for the Eagles, and the Eagles lost. I'm like, Jesus, both my teams are just horrible.
Hey, you got a good quarterback, though, in Philadelphia. Come on now. Carson Wentz looks like the real deal. I mean, I know he's a rookie, but there's a whole lot on his plate. He has no pieces around him. That offensive line's kind of shaky. The defense, if that team was worth a damn, that defense would have held them and they would have won that game. But defense has got a big question mark, too. So you got a good quarterback there.
I know, and there's so much parity in the league. How do you beat Pittsburgh like that? They scored 3 points on that defense. Granted, it was at home. I mean, but there's so much parity in the league. You go to Ford Field and you lose to the Lions. I mean, come on. I do like Carson Wentz, but if the Eagles were as bad as the Lions were in 2008, you know what? I would take Stafford in a heartbeat. I think Matt Stafford's got to get traded. He needs a new dog. He needs a new scenery. I don't put all the blame on Stafford. He's inconsistent. When the guy's on, he's on. But when he's off, look out. But I do like Matt Stafford, and I think the Lions need to restart. So I think starting with Caldwell, they need to broom him out.
It's like an old Nintendo video game. Hit the reset button, right?
the reset button, like a video game. Like I used to just smash my video games back in the day when they were real cheap, like Nintendo games. They need to just smash that thing and completely blow it up. It is really bad.
Yeah, it's time to move
worse
on.
than the 2009 season. When they played Green Bay in Chicago, I almost threw up. It was so bad. The Chicago one, it just felt like I had no feeling whatsoever. I'm just like, it's over. I mean, I'm only looking forward to the Pistons, and then Reggie Jackson goes down. I'm like, we're cursed.
You know what? One thing I'll give the Lions, they might end up moving on from Jim Caldwell, doing that before the Tigers ever move on from Brad Ausmus. I'll give the Lions that much. The only thing working in their favor against the Tigers is that. The one smart move they might make over the Tigers is moving on from their coach before the Tigers do and their manager, Brad Ausmus. So, Vinny, thank you for adding so much insight, so much fun and colorful insight and stuff to this edition of the podcast, and we'll let you go with that. You have a good one, and we look forward to the very next edition of the Vinny Stubbs Show.
All right, Vito, you rock. Keep pushing, baby.
All right, thank you much. We'll talk to you. And with that was Vinny Stubbs from the Vinny Stubbs Show. I didn't realize how out of control he can be. Now, how colorful he can be. A lot of colorful anecdotes about non-sports related topics, too, to say the least. I know he really gets into his stories, and I could tell with his segment there, too.
Did
Doc?
you not ever listen to his podcast?
Well, I listened to a little bit. I try to listen to some of it, and I could tell it was very
small bits and doses.
small bits and doses for me, and that was maybe enough. But he's colorful, adds a different kind of element or aspect to the DSP network, too, with that being said. And it is Adam. Adam Strozinski is on with us in studio as well. Adam, thanks for joining us today.
Dude, it's been, 2-3 years since I've been able to sit down across from a microphone with you?
I know, it's been a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, UDM.
Thanks for inviting me, man. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you for being on board here today for
Absolutely.
this episode 61 of Tiger Talk with Chirco and Company. And first and foremost, I've got to ask you, how do you put up with him?
I was going
on
to
Doc
ask you
and
the
Jock?
same thing.
I mean, it's a tough deal.
Hey, he gets to see me now. 2 days this week, so lucky him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely brutal for me, though. So it's what it is.
Yeah, we go along with it.
Look,
right?
look. Here's the deal: you can pick your friends, you can pick your nose, you can't pick your family. So I'm stuck with him. What am I gonna do? I can try to trade him in, but what am I gonna get? Linton buttons? Come on now.
Nothing much of value. No. Kidding aside here, we got to talk about Brad Ausmus. And you know what? I thought about, the Tigers should move on from him, get something of value, right? In replacement of Brad Ausmus. I don't know what's out there, and I guess the Tigers realize there's not enough to move on from Brad Ausmus at this point. But at the end of the day, was it worth the Tigers to not extend him, but to pick up his contract option for a fourth year in Motown?
Well, here's my question, okay? Maybe because you are the baseball guru on this network, all right? It seemed like Al Avila rushed to the finish line to sit there and pick up that option on Brad Ausmus. I feel like he could have waited a little bit longer now. I'm not sure how the contract is written, and I'm not sure what the details are. But if it was me, I would have waited until the playoffs were almost over, seen what happened with the other teams, with good teams, seen if they got rid of their managers. I mean, let's be honest. It doesn't look like the Giants will ever get rid of Bruce Bochy. He does a phenomenal job. It doesn't look like the Cubs are going to get rid of Joe Madden. He does a phenomenal job. I mean, Terry Francona, I don't think is going anywhere. So, but if these guys were to come available, you now don't necessarily have an option to go get them. Or if you do, you're going to have to pay Brad Ausmus to make him go sit on his couch. So it doesn't make sense to me why you sit there and you run to the gate and say, here, yeah, we got it. Let's pick up that option. I mean, has Brad Ausmus, in the 3 years that he's been here, has he done enough to sit there and warrant the expedition of picking up that club option? If you ask me, I say no. I don't think he's done enough. I was the one on the Doc and Jock show that kind of sat there and kept the heat off of Brad Ausmus. I always said, look, it's up to the players to play. Players got to play. Managers got to manage and basically control egos. And as the season wore on, I just kind of jumped off the Brad Ausmus bandwagon, and I said, you know what? He is part of the problem. He's not part of the solution. And it all kind of struck me all at the same time during that Kansas City game when you got guys on base and you have nobody up in the bullpen, and K-Rod is out there laboring, and he leaves him in, and they end up blowing that game. And that's one of those games that at this point in the season, you have to have it. You have to have it. And he did nothing to sit there and put this team in a spot to win that game. He actually helped them blow it, and that right there is part of the issue. How many games can you point to this season where he sat there and he was part of the reason why they lost the game? Now, I know managers don't get a lot of credit when they do win the game, and they take a lot of blame when they lose the game. It just seems like there's more times we're sitting there talking about games that Brad Ausmus has lost then Brad Ausmus has put this team in a spot to win a game. And that's my big issue.
Well, what has he done for us? Right? In 3 years, not a lot. And I could see giving him the benefit of the doubt when it comes to allowing him to progress as a manager, to build upon something and develop into a full-fledged big league skipper that's capable of making those in-game adjustments, of making the lineup every single day. He never really proved a ton with that, especially his lineup construction. How about the fact that he had Vimar as a cleanup hitter, JD as a fifth hitter for all that time this season, even when JD was killing it. Once he got back from the DL, he was the best hitter almost in all of baseball. Best hitter for the Tigers, statistically proven. You can look at the stats, and it is there that JD was the best one, better than J-Up even, better than V-Mart for sure, and V-Mart struggled. He really struggled in the second half, looked like a shell of his old self, and you still have the goal, the audacity, to put V-Mart as a fourth hitter ahead of J.D. Martinez in your everyday lineup. That didn't help out the Tigers at all, and it hurt them in certain situations when V-Mart came up to bat after Cabrera, and V-Mart didn't produce. And you could have had J.D. there who was producing all second half long, could have been there in that situation and would have probably produced.
Absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. And again, it just doesn't seem like he, especially with the veterans, it doesn't seem like he either has the pull or has the confidence in himself to sit there and say, hey, you're going to have to take a seat or you're going to have to take a back seat to this guy because he's outperforming you right now. It doesn't seem like he has that ability to sit there and go to his players and kind of say, look, I'm the manager, I'm the boss, so this is what we're going to do. Look, I know you're a 10-year vet, and I know that you do a lot of great things, but it's my way or the highway. It doesn't seem like he has that pull. It doesn't seem like he has that respect of that clubhouse to be able to do that. And look, as a manager, your job is to sit there and control the egos. That's what you have to do as a baseball manager. You know, and this team was built to win. And I think Al Avila has a little bit of buyer's remorse. He came out and basically said as much. Maybe we shouldn't have hired a first-year manager for this team because it was like giving a Ferrari to a kid who's got his learner's permit. And he's crashed one Ferrari, crashed a Lamborghini, and honestly, now you got this nice Audi, and he basically set it afire. So what are you going to give him next year? A Maserati? And let's see what he can do? Just because he got his learner's permit now and he's got his driver's license for his very first year, let's see if he can wrap another car around a pole. That's kind of what it feels like here. And he just, to me, he hasn't done enough to warrant being brought back, especially at the speed that Al Avila went out and said, yeah, you know what, we're going to pick up that option. Again, wait and see what's going on. And you kind of touched on it with Vinny there. They're kind of going through this whole change with the front office where they want, I think, move more to an analytics-based instead of just kind of letting the manager do what the manager does. I think they want to sit there and they want to, you know, a guy like Joe Madden would be the quintessential manager for this team, for what this front office wants to do. You blew your shot getting him, and there's no confirmation or whether or not they were even in talks with getting him, but he would be the guy who would be perfect for what they're looking to do. Now, you got Brad Ausmus, who everybody says is, you know, the second coming of Joe Madden. I don't see it. I don't think you see it. It you know, leaves you scratching your head more times than not. And look, Brad Ausmus in games flip-flops the way he manages a team. It seems like sometimes he'll sit there, he'll put a guy out there because his gut tells him to, and then other times he'll sit there and throw an infield shift on because the numbers tell him to. And then when you go and you question him after a ball game, he says, well, you know, my gut said to do this, or the numbers say to do this. Well, it's like, where are we going here? Which way are we going? You know, your managing style differs. It's counterintuitive to yourself. So what are we doing? You know, it's too many inconsistencies like that. And you need your manager to be solid and to be a rock, a foundation. And that's part of the problem, I think, with his tenure as manager. It's just too many inconsistencies. Look, when Jim Leland was here, you knew what you got.
Yep.
You got a crotchety old man who sat there and would just kill the marbles and cowboy killers too, just sitting there smoking them in the dugout. And then at the end of the game, you'd ask him a question. He'd tell you, look, my gut told me to do it this way. This is how I do it. This is how I run. If you don't like it, hey, go get in a boat and row yourself somewhere else.
Yeah, too damn bad.
Yeah. It's what it was.
Yeah.
You knew what his philosophy was. With Brad Ausmus, I don't think we still have a clear-cut understanding of what his philosophy is, and that's an issue.
He's not consistent enough,
Exactly.
one way or the other, and being analytical, which is new school or old school. He differs between the two way too much, it seems like, Doc, and that's one of his main problems, in my opinion, as well, as Adam noted.
So, okay, you guys are questioning what his identity is, but don't you think that there is a little bit of value in what if we put ourselves in the organization's mindset that the team this year when you look at just the 2016 team, they went out there and they only had their lineup. I think it was reported maybe a dozen times, their standard everyday lineup that they wanted to roll out. And then you still, with all those injuries, with the problems in the bullpen, I mean, Brett Ausmus, his hands were tied with the bullpen. Anybody that he put out there would struggle at sometimes. Do you give him any credit in that he was with the injuries and with not having his everyday lineup, that lineup that you would want to have every day? Do you give him any credit for just getting within one game of getting into the postseason?
Yeah, so keeping the boat afloat. But you know what? The front office, Al Avila, and the front office of the Tigers is going to give you that PR smoke screen, in so many words, because it's not that valid. It is a little bit because they had a 12-win improvement despite those things that you talked about, too, all the injuries, and they almost made it in. They did, coming down to the last day of the regular season, and really they didn't get the chance to play Game 162, almost did. But in so many words, yeah, they still had a chance, fighter's chance. Thing is, though, he hurt them for maybe getting those 2 additional wins they could have and would have needed to get into the playoffs. If they would have had those 2 extra wins, 3 extra wins, they would have been a playoff team, unlike what they are right now when they're golfing. Justin Verlander's working on his golf game instead of working on his pitching game and pitching in the playoffs. Twice in a 5-game series, perhaps, in this ALDS round. So you blew your chances still, and Brad Ausmus did specifically. So you can't totally blame it or use that as a valid reason, because also there's another point to bring up with that. It is that other teams made it in despite their injuries. The Mets did, the Dodgers. Think about it, who are still playing right now. A lot of injuries for their rotation. Kershaw was out for how long with the Dodgers? Guess what? They made it in. That was their best starting pitcher. He's a Verlander. Imagine the Tigers losing Verlander. Where would they have been this year? I don't think anywhere close to making the playoffs.
You don't even have to go to the NL. Stay in the AL. You've got teams in your own division.
The Indians.
You have the Indians who lost more man games than you did.
Yep.
You have a team like the Rangers who lost almost more games, if not more games than you did, and they still made it into the playoffs. And they were sitting there, they were dominant. The Indians wiped your face in it all season long. If you could have went somewhere close to 500 against the Indians, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now because you would have made it to the playoffs. Instead, you sit there, they won 2 games, 3 games all season.
4-14 against the Tri. That's horrible.
See, that's awful. That's absolutely atrocious.
Yep.
We shouldn't even be having this conversation because whether or not injuries are going to happen, it's sports. It's sports. Every single season, there's always 1 or 2 injuries that you can point to and say, hey, this guy was healthy, he would have made a difference. Well, no shit, Sherlock. It's like, no duh. Of course he would have. I mean, he's a major league ball player. He's a major league hockey player. Whatever the sport is, they're there for a reason. They make a difference. All right? So you lose. Look, it's on the manager to sit there and put the best piece in and try to get it to work. And look, when Nick Castellanos went down, there was a little bit of an offensive hampering there, but I think defensively the production was fine. You could put Casey McGee in, and it was okay. You could sit there and rotate. You got, Eric Ibar you brought in, and you were able to sit there and fill a spot there. All right? But when J.D. Martinez goes down, what's going on? And look, you can blame it on the organization for maybe not having the necessary pieces to sit there and plug in and to make up that difference. But as a manager, you got to sit there, you got to adjust your batting order. You got to sit there and you got to put the best guys in spots to win. And I don't think that Brad Ausmus does that enough, where he puts guys in places to win and to help make this team better. And that's the biggest issue I take with his tenure as manager here, is he just hasn't done enough to really push this team over the top. If it was as simple as just kind of rolling the bats and the balls out there and saying, hey guys, go pick up your mitts, shoot, the 3 of us could sit there and manage the Tigers. And I don't know about you guys, but I'd like that payday a lot more than what, Detroit Sports Podcast Network's paying us right now. You know what I'm saying?
Peanuts.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I mean, that's what I'm talking about here. And I just spit all over the place. Sorry about that.
That's all right. I didn't notice it. So that's good. Yeah.
Right,
At least that
I
happened.
just done myself out.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's if it was that simple, the 3 of us could be doing it.
Yeah.
And I know it's not that simple, but that's sometimes how he manages. And it just doesn't make sense because you're not putting this team in a spot where feasibly they're going to sit there and win games. They're not going to make the playoffs. And that's, I think, an issue that every Tiger fan takes with Brad Ausmus and his tenure here.
And no urgency with his arms. How about leaving guys like, Anibal Sanchez way too long in games at times, and you can go to your bullpen or make it a bullpen game. Instead of starting Sanchez or Zimmerman later in the season like they did, or Pelfrey, make it a bullpen game like Francona and the Indians do, like other capable, more competent managers do that are in the playoffs too. And think about that.
Here's something too. I think as a Tiger fan, and maybe even as a Red Wing fan, this is an issue I take with both of these organizations. If we're going to lose, I'd much rather struggle and lose with the young players that we have. So you've got guys like Daniel Norris, you've got guys like Matt Boyd, and these guys for most of the season were either down in the farm system or they just weren't being utilized at all. Instead, you're going to sit there, you're going to roll out Sanchez, who we know maybe can give you 3 innings, and then after that, it's all a coin flip. Mike Pelfrey, who was an absolute disaster, and I hated the signing the moment that they sat there and they did it, and I gave numerous reasons back in the offseason when they brought him in. And it seems like they were so stubborn to sit there and stick with those guys. Look, I don't care that Anibal Sanchez makes $17 million a season. I don't care that Mike Pelfrey makes $8.25 million a season. It doesn't matter to me. If we're going to lose and we're going to struggle, let the young kids do it. Let them learn. Let there be that learning curve, all right? I mean, and in the end, what helped salvage the season? It was the 3 young arms that really sat there and balanced you out and helped get you to within 2 games of making the playoffs. So if we go back and we look in retrospect, would we have been a better team if they sat there and maybe they had some early struggles early on in the season and maybe sat there and pitched a little bit better than a guy like Anibal Sanchez, who I don't think any of us expected the drop-off to be as dramatic as it was this year. I think that kind of took all of us a little bit by surprise. We all knew he was kind of on the downside of his career, but this year it was like the entire bottom fell out. And I don't know what you're going to do with him next year. I know what I would do, and we can talk about that if you'd like. But I don't think any of us expected that to happen. A guy like Mike Pelfrey, I didn't have high hopes for. Look, he's going to be your 5th pitcher. What are you really expecting out of your 5th pitcher? You want a guy to be somewhere close to 500. If he's close to 500 as your 5th pitcher, that's outstanding. You would prefer him to have more wins than losses, but if he's plus or minus 1 or 2, take it all day long. And a guy like a Matt Boyd, and I know Daniel Norris was hurt early on in the season, but by the time he was healthy, you could sit there and you could plug him in as your 5th starter, and I think you're going to get a much more higher value of return on what those 2 guys are doing as opposed to what you're getting from Mike Pelfrey.
And then Pelfrey wasn't wanted by the Twins, who are so depleted in their rotation. They're desperate for starting arms. Outside of Irvin Santana, their ace, there's nobody else in that rotation 2 through 5 that they can rely upon consistently. And you move on from Pelfrey, and the Tigers get him a team that wants to win this year. Made no sense whatsoever from the start, like you said, when Alavila added him in the offseason too.
And they come in and they basically say, "Hey, look, this is what we're picking him up and we're bringing him in, not because of anything that we've seen, but we think we can fix him. And this is a scout signing." And it turns out that the scout who signed him was basically his high school roommate and best buddy. They were like great friends. So it just kind of like, okay, a little bit of nepotism there. Is that why he got the nod? What's going on? And again, you're not helping your ball club. You're not putting this team in a position to sit there and win games. And if I am Brad Ausmus and you come to me and you say, "Hey, we're bringing Mike Pelfrey in. We want him to be the 5th starter." If you're Al Avila and you're telling me this, I'm going to say, "All right, I'll do you a solid this one time, and I'll start him, and we'll see what happens." So you give him 4, 5 games. Basically, you're giving him about a month worth of starts. And after a month, I think we all seen it wasn't going to work. Go and get one of the young kids. Let them do their thing. Let it work out that way. You can move Pelfrey into the bullpen. That's what the Twins did with him because he was so garbage in the starting rotation. They're like, "Look, we're paying you all this money. We got to get something out of you. We'll move you to the bullpen. Put him in the bullpen. Let him work out of that." And look, it'll help facilitate 2 needs because now you've upgraded your starting rotation with one of the young arms, and now you've got a guy who can either give you some long starts or a guy who can sit there and I don't know, if you need something, he can do something. We don't need him out there for a long period of time. So the way that they did things with the starting rotation and the way that they handled parts of the bullpen really made me scratch my head. And I don't know if it all falls on Brad Ausmus. I think some of it falls on Al Avila as well. And it just seems like an unharmonious marriage right there, especially with those 2 parts of the team this season. It's just very, I don't know, just a lot of question marks and a lot of head scratching.
So with that said, where should the Tigers start in the offseason to make their priority? Is it the bullpen? Is it to find a left-handed bat that can be productive in the outfield or upgrade the defense, maybe 1 or 2 starters? If you could target 1 or 2 things as a priority, what would they be? Because it seems like there's a lot.
Can I say D, all of the above? This is what I would do. I think your starting rotation is fine. I think Justin Verlander has come a long way from his injury, and I think he looks not like he's a Cy Young winner, but he looks damn good. He looks like a guy who you can sit there and pencil in as your ace. If Jordan Zimmerman comes back and he gives you what you expected this year, next year, I think you're going to be okay with that. And then you've got your 3 young pitchers to sit there and fill out the back end of that starting rotation. I think you're okay there. I think you need to add an arm in your bullpen. whether it be a closer or not. I think you can go get Aroldis Chapman, sign him to a 3-year, $15 million a year deal, and I think he would take that. Now you've got a guy who can sit there and just throw heat, high heat, and he's your closer. You can sit there and move K-Rod to your setup guy. I'd be all right with K-Rod as my setup guy, and in a pinch, I'm okay with him as my closer as well. On top of that, if you're a batter, you sit there, you have K-Rod that you're facing, who's more of a strategic pitcher. He doesn't have the fire to sit there and blow it by you. So now, as a batter, you're watching the game kind of unfold in front of you. Your eye gets a little bit trained on the slower speed, the slower pitching that K-Rod delivers, and then you bring in Aroldis Chapman. It totally messes with your eyes in the speed of the game because you're almost getting lulled to sleep by K-Rod, and then you got a flamethrower like Aroldis Chapman. So I think it's a nice 1-2 punch there. All right, so I would upgrade my bullpen most definitely, and they need a left-handed bat. This all-righty lineup that they can sit there and roll out every single day doesn't work. They need a left-handed bat. Doesn't necessarily have to be a power bat. I think you have too many of the same guys. Miguel Cabrera, Victor Martinez, JD Martinez. They're all the same guy. Mm-hmm. They're guys who can sit there and hit the long ball and have a lot of power, but not necessarily good on-base speed. They sit there and they hit for a pretty decent average, but they're all home run hitters. You know, it's like, again, constructing a softball team just to sit there and power the ball out of the field. So you need a guy who can sit there and hit for a good average, give you some power now and again, but you got to be able to get on base, and I think you need to be able to steal some bases. You need a good fundamental baseball player is what you need, who can hit from the left side. And hopefully he comes with some defense because, look, the outfield at times, huge question marks out there. We all kind of knew what we were getting when we signed
Justin Upton?
Yes, thank you. My mind just went blank there.
Uh-huh.
So we all knew what we were getting. Look, streaky player, and he was long streaks this year where he was absolutely ice cold, and then end of the season he got red hot. And hopefully next season it's not like that. Maybe it's a little bit more of a mix where he's hot, cold, and balances out. But look, defensively, he's not great. I mean, there are times where just routine fly balls, he's losing, he's missing, not hitting cutoff men. So, I mean, that's an issue. I like Cameron Maybin. I like what Cameron Maybin brings. I think he has a solid batting average. I think he can sit there. He has some timely power. He's much better at home than he is on the road if you look at his splits. So that's a little bit of a question mark, but I like what he does for this ball club inside that dugout. It seems like he is that force, almost that glue to kind of bring all the guys together, kind of makes them feel, I don't know if lightens the load is the correct term I want to use here or not, but it seems almost like he makes it to where these guys aren't so uptight. He kind of, brings the fun back to it. And look, it's a kid's game, right? We talk about it all the time. Baseball's a kid's sport. And these guys want to sit there and go out there and have fun. Look at Miguel Cabrera. Everybody sits there and gets on him when he's struggling, but he's out there having a good time all the time. And that's how the game should be played. And he's his most productive when he's out there having a good time, So I think that Cameron Maybin brings that. Now, that leads us to basically one piece here who is possibly a trade commodity, and that's JD. Again, like I said, we've got three guys who are the exact same player. And you're not trading Miguel Cabrera. You're probably not going to be able to get rid of Victor Martinez because I don't think anybody wants him. JD Martinez is your only piece that you really have. He's got 1 year left on his contract. If you're going to move somebody, you're going to trade somebody, you hate to see him go because he is a young talent, and I think he's going to be good for a very long time. But if there's a guy out there who you can possibly trade to get something in return that's going to help make this team a little bit different, make it a little bit better, I think you got to look at JD. Or maybe you don't bring Cameron Maybin back next year. There are pieces, there are interchangeable pieces on this team, especially in that outfield, where you can sit there and you can do some adjusting to make this team better. And if I'm Al Avila, I'm looking probably at those two spots because, look, J-Up's here, and I think he's going to be here to stay, especially after the season he just put up. It'd be stupid for him to sit there and step away from his contract and try to go get more money because nobody's going to give it to you.
And you spoke so highly of Cameron Maybin, what he adds to the ball club at the top of the lineup as a spark plug and adding fun to the locker room, to the clubhouse as well. And he adds a component that the Tigers desperately need, which is getting away from that softball mentality that you were speaking of. So I think they have to bring him back. And you got to give Al Avila credit for that. He brought in Cameron Maybin and traded Ian Kroll, a guy like that, to the Braves to get Cameron Maybin in return. So what a great deal. Kroll had a solid season, actually, by the way, for the Braves. But obviously, if you just got to deal Ian Kroll to get your starting center fielder, you do it any day of the week.
Any day of the week.
You do, absolutely.
Yep.
And then getting Ian Kinsler, and that was a Dombrowski deal, getting rid of Prince Fielder to get Ian Kinsler. What a huge upgrade, and that changed the component, the makeup of the ball club, too. So they started to do that with Dombrowski, getting Iglesias as well for Avisel Garcia, and then Alavila added on to that by getting Cameron Maben. So they've started to do that, but you made a good point. They're still lacking some of that. They need more of that component, of that mixture, that meaning that you need guys that have speed, that play defense, get on base, like you said. So I think you got to keep Maben. And then I think an area where you could upgrade there and get a better OBP guy is at shortstop with Jose Iglesias, which I've brought up before with Doc. I talked about how really he doesn't add a lot with the bat. Doesn't really get on base for a guy that's a speedster, adequate defensively, doesn't steal a lot of bases. Yep. And the base running really of him and a lot of Tigers is lackluster overall wise.
I think he's more sizzle than he is steak.
Yeah.
He's good for 1, 2, maybe 3 or 4, just like, oh my God, plays every single season where your jaw just hits the table and you got to pick it back up and put it, close your mouth a little bit before a fly flies in. He's good for 3 of those a year, and I think that's what fans hold on to and they gravitate to. Like, oh my God, you see that play he made in the outfield? Like, he ran a mile to sit there and catch that ball. Well, okay, one, did he really have to run a mile to go catch that ball in the outfield? Couldn't either the left fielder or the center fielder have made that play? Probably. And look, what has he given you besides all that? It's usually not a whole lot. He's usually good for a couple throwing errors every single season. Like you said, he doesn't do a very good job when he gets on base to steal bases. He does have a flashy glove. He really does. But that's about all he's got. More sizzle than he is steak. And look, again, if you're looking to upgrade this team, you got to take a real hard critical look at what you got. Sometimes you got to make a tough decision on a player like that. I mean, that's a guy that I think most teams in the league would like. A guy who's got a flashy glove. His last couple, this past season, his batting average wasn't very good. But, you can sit there and you could try to sell that to somebody. Look, he hit 300, he had an off season, maybe just a little bit of a regression there. But he'll pick it up next season. You could turn around, you could try to spin that somehow and maybe go get something that, again, is going to help you. And look, a left-handed bat with a better OBP is what this team needs. And if you can get that in a better shortstop, why the hell not,
Yeah, I think you got to get better OBP guys, definitely, who are less sizzle and more just product, getting it done in an efficient fashion. You need effective guys in getting on base. Also, a left-handed bat, besides for Victor Martinez, because he's a switch hitter who can do it, but at 38 now, is he going to keep doing it? He kind of showed signs of regression there. You can't trust upon him to get it done as your one big-time left-handed bat going forward. You really can't in V-Mart's bat.
I mean, that guy's got knees that are basically held together with super glue, duct tape, and dried-up rubber bands.
Yeah.
So how many more ACL surgeries can this guy have? I mean, he's running on bionic knees right now. It's pretty brutal. You can see it when he sits there and he tries to leg out a single, and honestly, he doesn't even leg out singles anymore.
He can't.
He basically has to hop on a Vespa and go down to first base.
He needs a wheelchair.
You
got to get more limber. You got to get better base runners overall.
Exactly.
And you could get a DH that's younger, maybe not Stephen Moyle, but he's a guy you could throw out there to platoon with somebody at DH that could be better, more efficient on the base paths, which they need to upgrade. The base running was horrible. It was worth negative runs. This season. That's how bad they were. They were towards the bottom of the league in that stat. And then you brought up bullpen arms. You can get them on the cheap. We talked about it ad nauseum with Jason Jarvie earlier on in the podcast about how they have to upgrade that, and they can do it cheaply, or they can get Aroldis Chapman to upgrade the back end of the pen and make him the closer. K-Rod's the setup man, and then you have that mix of soft throwing with K-Rod, more efficient command, and that hard throwing ability with Aroldis Chapman, a guy that can reach 102 miles per hour plus. But I think you need to upgrade the middle innings as well and look at the free agent market to do that. You can upgrade cheaply via the free agent market.
How do you feel about Shane Green? Do you like him? Do you like what he brought this season? Because he was a guy that early on in the season I was high on. I thought he'd be a great fifth starter for you. They sat there, they moved him around a little bit, and they put him in the bullpen. Now, at times he shined, and at times he was probably one of your more productive bullpen arms, and then he had struggles. And again, it's his first full season in the bullpen, and he really took to the role, and he worked diligently at that and being a bullpen guy. I think next season he takes another step forward, and I think he's much more consistent, and I think he might be your middle inning guy. And I think he'll be a lot better than he was this year. I'm not sure how you feel. I'm not sure what you've seen from him. Did you like him? Did you not? Because I was high on him from the beginning of the season. I wanted him as my fifth starter. And then they sat there, they shuffled things around, like I said, and I thought he did a very good job his first full time being put in an awkward spot. I mean, when you go from a starting pitcher to a bullpen arm, it's a totally different game. Your warm-up's different. The way you got to take care of your body's different. What they're expecting from you is just absolutely different than what you would get as a starting pitcher, As a starting pitcher, you're pitching every 5, maybe 6 days. In the bullpen, you could be called on 3-4 days in a row, and with the way Brad Ausmus runs his bullpen, it might be a 5th or 6th day that you get called on when you have nothing left in the tank. So I like the way that he progressed as the season went on. And again, I know he struggled at certain points, but I think he takes a step forward next year.
He looked good in the pen here and there, and I like him more as a pen arm than as a starting pitcher. I think his time in the rotation is done. He's never going to be a starting arm again or an effective starting arm. Can be a good middle of the bullpen guy, middle innings guy, maybe even a late inning guy, depending on the matchups. Obviously, it should be matchup based. And you know what? This is what I pointed out with Jason Jarvie as well earlier on in the podcast, is that don't have defined roles for guys. They don't have to just be setup men or the closer. They can come in earlier spots in the game, such as Terry Francona has deployed there with Andrew Miller and some of his other bullpen arms, such as Dan Otero, Brian Shaw, pitching them for more than one inning as well at times, and using them in the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, no matter what the inning is, and it's based on the matchups more and the high leverage situations. How high leverage of a situation is it when it is he puts in those guys? Because he's going to put those guys in, his best relief arms, in those high leverage situations, which Ausmus, I think, has to adjust to, adapt to, whatever you want to call it, and do that more often in 2017.
Again, I think that's more of an issue with Ausmus, just being too rigid and too structured in the way he wants to do things. Because you're absolutely right. I mean, if you've got a guy who can sit there and go out and will succeed in a situation, just because he's either A, your closer, or B, he's penciled in as a setup guy, doesn't mean you can't use him in the middle innings if it's going to work and it's going to get you out of a jam. I mean, it's a close game, right? You probably don't want to use your closer in the 7th inning, and it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but it's a close game, and you can sit there and you can take your setup guy and possibly use your setup guy right there in the 7th, and who's to say that he can't come out and pitch the 8th? You know, that's something that you didn't see Brad Ausmus do ever. You know, K-Rod basically was a 3 outs kind of guy. He's going to be brought in the 9th, and that was it. I mean, why can't you bring him in, you know, partway through the 8th and get a 4-out save, get a 5-out save? You know, I mean, his arm's not going to fall off. You know, he's one of the best closers of all time. So what?
Yep.
Let him go a little bit longer. It'll be okay. So again, I think that's more of a philosophy standpoint with Brad Ausmus and just more inconsistency with Ausmus because, again, the numbers say it's going to work, but hey, we're going to stick to this. This is old school now. We're going to stick to this way. Again, just more inconsistency
Where's
with
the
the
mentality?
way he manages. Yes.
Yeah, right? Let's see some more consistency with his method, his direction, and utilizing bullpen arms and setting up his lineup and his rotation as well, Doc.
So now you've seen the playoffs a little bit, seen some of the clubs that we consider to be contenders. Who do you have to be in the World Series?
You know, I love what the Giants do.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're a fun baseball team to watch. Madison Bumgarner is great. Now, look, the other night, Jake Arrieta comes up, hits a 3-run bomb, and you're expecting the Cubs to win, and somehow the Giants pull it out. Now, look, don't be surprised if the Giants end up coming back and winning this series.
A team that won't die.
Exactly.
Great in elimination games. Unbelievable.
All the time.
But the difference maker with the Giants this year is their bullpen isn't nearly as potent, nearly as stout. I mean, you got Sergio Romo back in the closer role, but he didn't look good, hasn't looked good all season long, really just got back that role. He's not the steady closer that he used to be for the Giants either. So the Cubs, I think, actually will still win. Will still win will win this series at least against the Giants.
But if the Giants come out and they tie the series up, how much does that play on the Cubs? Because, look, the Cubs breed all the headlines. You know what the deal is with the Cubs. The lovable losers, the team that can't get out of their own way. They're cursed. They're this, they're that. How much does that play on their mind? And then you sit there and you turn around and you got to face Madison Bumgarner possibly again in that 5th game. I don't know. I could see the Giants winning this series. I think it's possible. You're right. The Cubs might win, but I think it's possible.
Cubs should win this series at least is what I'm saying. I'm not going to say they're going to do more than that. I think winning against the Giants, though, should happen because they're a better ball club.
Right.
At least.
But I could see the Giants winning. And there's something magical about what Bruce Bochy does, and he does it with this club. And it's weird. It's fun to watch. If you sit back and you just kind of watch it all, it's a lot of fun. As far as the AL goes, don't be surprised if the Indians are there.
At this point, right?
Honestly, don't be surprised. The Indians, I don't know, Terry Francona knows what he's doing.
He does.
He's a great manager.
He's a better manager than John Gibbons as well, the team that he will have to square off with the Blue Jays. Now, the Blue Jays I like because they can mash, they can pitch, I think, even more efficiently. Now, the Indians have the bullpen, though, and they could do it because of Francona and I think that pen. And they got a guy like Mike Napoli. So watch out for the Tribe. Watch out for the Cubbies, I think, in the next round. But I think they lose to the Washington Nationals. My pick to win it all, who I had beating the Red Sox originally, won't happen now. But anyways, just to sum up all of this conversation today with Adam Strozinski, thank you very much. Tigers, back to them really quick, have to upgrade base running. They have to upgrade OBP-wise. At shortstop, maybe even in center field, because Cameron Maybin might be due for a little bit of regression, had a career year, might be due for a little bit of regression, and also upgrade the bullpen, the middle innings, maybe go get Aroldis Chapman as well to become your closer.
There is definitely spots on this team that have to be upgraded, and again, look for Alavila to sit there, get somebody for that bullpen. Look for him to possibly do something in that outfield, whether it's trading away JD Martinez or sitting there not re-upping with Cameron Maben. But there'll be moves that'll be made, and this team should be stronger next season.
Absolutely, Doc. Thank you very much. It's giving us the cutoff sign here. We got to move on. Now, good luck to you at WWJ. I know you're doing some stuff there with News Radio 950.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
So best of luck to you. We'll keep checking out your work. And Doc, Adam, everybody else, Vinny Stubbs, and Jason Jarvie as well. Thanks to all of them for all their great stuff on this week's edition of Tigers Talk with Chirco and Company, episode 61. Sayonara, everybody.